He came to the graduation late, wearing a janitor's uniform that still smelled faintly of cleaning solution. He planned to stand at the back, clap once, and leave quietly, until a Navy captain in full dress blues froze mid-step, stared at the faded tattoo on the man's forearm, and began to cry. What that tattoo meant would change a son's future, reopen a father's buried past, and remind everyone in the hall that heroism doesn't always come with medals on display. Stay until the end, because the truth behind the tattoo was never meant to be seen again. The morning of the graduation arrived like a held breath. The kind that presses against the chest and refuses to let go. For most families, it was a day of pressed suits, polished shoes, and loud laughter echoing through hallways. For Ethan Morales, it was the day he had imagined since he was 7 years old, the day he would walk across a stage and prove, not to the world but to himself, that he had made it. His father, Daniel Morales, almost didn't come. Daniel stood in the narrow hallway of the apartment they'd shared for years, staring at himself in the cracked mirror above the sink. His shoulders were broad but tired, his hair cut short because it was easier that way, and the deep lines around his eyes told stories he never spoke aloud. The janitor's uniform hung loosely on his frame, navy blue, worn thin at the elbows. He tried to scrub a faint stain from the sleeve, but it refused to disappear, like some mark simply wanted to stay. He turned his arm slightly and caught sight of the tattoo on his forearm. Faded ink. Simple lines. A symbol few people recognized anymore. He pulled his sleeve down quickly, as if the tattoo might speak if left uncovered. "I'll just stand in the back," he whispered to himself. He doesn't need distractions. Ethan had never asked his father to come. Not because he didn't want him there, but because he knew how those things went. The looks. The whispers. The polite smiles that lingered just a second too long. Daniel was proud of his work. He always said honest labor was nothing to hide, but Ethan had grown up watching his father lower his eyes in rooms full of people who wore cleaner clothes and spoke louder words. Daniel had raised Ethan alone since the boy was 6. His wife had passed quietly after a short illness, leaving behind a silence that never truly left their home. Daniel worked nights cleaning office buildings and mornings mopping school hallways. He learned how to braid hair, how to pack lunches with handwritten notes, how to stay awake through parent-teacher meetings after 12-hour shifts. He never missed a single one. Ethan knew all of this. He also knew his father never talked about his life before him. No stories of youth. No old friends visiting. No photographs older than 20 years. Just that tattoo, occasionally visible when Daniel rolled up his sleeves to wash dishes. The graduation hall was packed. Families filled the seats, cameras raised, voices buzzing with pride. Daniel slipped in through a side door, nodding politely to an usher who barely noticed him. He took a seat in the last row, near the exit, where the shadows felt safer. When Ethan's name was called, Daniel stood without thinking. His hands shook as he clapped, slow and steady, his chest tight with a pride so fierce it hurt. He watched his son walk across the stage, confident, tall, eyes shining, and felt something inside him finally loosen. That's when he noticed the silence. It started small. A pause. A strange stillness spreading across the room like a ripple in water. Daniel looked up and saw a man standing near the stage in full navy dress uniform. The man wasn't clapping. He wasn't smiling. He was staring directly at Daniel. The officer stepped forward slowly, eyes locked on Daniel's forearm. Daniel realized too late that his sleeve had slipped up as he clapped. The tattoo was exposed. The officer stopped a few feet away, and then, in front of everyone, the Navy captain's face crumpled. His hands began to shake. Tears welled in his eyes and spilled down his cheeks. Daniel's heart dropped. He knew that look. He hadn't seen it in years. The hall was silent now. Cameras lowered. Conversations died mid-sentence. A Navy captain crying was not part of the program. Daniel stood slowly, instinctively pulling his sleeve down, but the captain raised a trembling hand. "Don't," the man said, his voice breaking. "Please, don't hide it." The captain took another step forward, then another, until he stood directly in front of Daniel. His voice was barely above a whisper, but somehow it carried. "I thought you were gone," he said. "We all did." Daniel closed his eyes. So this was it. The past he had buried beneath years of quiet work and sleepless nights had finally found him. The captain turned to the crowd, struggling to compose himself. "That tattoo," he said, pointing gently, "belongs to a unit that no longer officially exists. Men who were trained to disappear. Missions that were never recorded. Lives that were meant to move on without recognition. Murmurs spread through the room. Daniel exhaled slowly and nodded. I didn't want this, he said quietly. Not today. This is my son's day. Ethan had stopped at the edge of the stage, diploma in hand, staring at his father like he was seeing him for the first time. The captain looked at Ethan, then back at Daniel. Your father saved my life, he said. More than once. Daniel's voice was steady, but heavy. I was young. I did what I was trained to do. You did more than that, the captain replied. You carried wounded men through fire. You stayed behind so others could leave. You refused medals because you wanted to come home. Daniel swallowed. I wanted to raise my son. The captain turned fully toward Ethan. Your father didn't disappear because he failed, he said. He disappeared because he chose love over war. Ethan felt the weight of those words settle into his chest. Memories flooded back, his father falling asleep at the kitchen table, hands still smelling of bleach. His father cheering the loudest at school plays. His father never missing a day, even when it hurt to stand. The janitor's uniform suddenly looked different. The captain straightened, saluted Daniel sharply, and said, "Welcome home, brother." The entire hall rose to its feet. The applause was thunderous, but Daniel barely heard it. He was looking at Ethan, whose eyes were wet, whose smile was trembling. Ethan stepped off the stage and walked straight to his father. He didn't say a word. He just hugged him, tight, unashamed, unbreakable. I didn't know, Ethan whispered. Daniel held him close. You didn't need to, he said. You just needed me to be your dad. Later, as the crowd slowly dispersed, the captain approached Ethan one last time. Your father taught me something I never forgot, he said. That the greatest strength isn't in what you survive, but in what you choose to protect. Ethan nodded, his voice steady now. He protected me. That night, Daniel went home not as a man revealed, but as a man finally understood, and the tattoo, it remained faded, unchanged, because the real mark of who he was had never been on his skin. It was in the life he built, quietly, every single day.